But it's great because I usually say there's anybody in here, and I get on the machine next to them. So if they put in 40 minutes, I put in 45. And if they put the speed 7, I do 7.1. So, and try and keep up, especially if it's a woman.
But looks can be deceiving. To prevent his body from rejecting its new liver, George must take medication twice a day for the rest of his life, and he's under strict orders from his consultant to avoid alcohol, especially spirits such as brandy. But what you soon learn is that George Best takes orders from nobody.
Stephen, the owner, Stephen Purdue, he actually at one stage was going to all the local pubs and told them not to serve me. And I basically said to him, Stephen, if I want to have a drink, I'll find a way. So there's no point in telling people not to serve me. I said, I'll go to the local off licence. I said, and I'll sit in here and get totally slaughtered every night. I said, at least if I go out and people see me, they'll look after me a bit more than I'll look after myself here. So that's fine. But I have spells I'm trying very hard, and the professor said, if I can get to the stage where I can keep clear for maybe 3 months and get all my blood counts back to what they should be. But at the moment, they're totally disastrous. So, and he's basically saying if you carry on, you won't last very long.
And how long is it since you had a brandy?
12 hours.
George's transplant operation was and remains controversial. Because of his past, some critics feel that there were others more deserving of a new liver.
He's entitled to be treated medically just like anybody else who smokes heavily and does all these other things, drives too fast on the roads. I mean, half of disease is due to lifestyle habits. So there's plenty of reasons why George should have his transplant and be treated just like anybody else if they've got a disease which is partly self-induced.
How long is it since you've seen him?
I haven't seen him for about a couple of months. I keep ringing him up. I do talk to him frequently on the phone. But
why haven't you seen him?
I think he's been busy, staying away. I don't know.
Until now, the public have always seemed to forgive George for his drinking. His behaviour seemed almost innocent and naive. But something has changed. Before his operation, George said he would never drink again, and everyone believed him. Now they feel cheated.
There's no one more sorry about it than George, but he didn't set out and think, I'll have this new liver and then I'm going to drink again. You know, when George said he's never going to drink again, I believed in him, and so did everybody else. You know, but it's...
So did I.
He's an alcoholic. They changed his liver, they didn't cure his disease.
George's reputation has been further tarnished by a recent widely reported domestic dispute which left wife Alex cut and bruised, and George spending a night in the cells.
I turned up at home Christmas evening. She had taken her wedding rings off. She'd turned all my photographs face down in the house. And she'd, in front of my favourite chair, in front of the fireplace, she'd placed a magazine quite conveniently with a headline saying, "Getting drunk with George Best's missus is what it's all about." I went to bed and she sat downstairs and was on the phone to somebody for an hour and a quarter. And then my mobile phone rang and she picked it up and there was a withheld number and she freaked out. Hit me over the head with a bedside lamp, scratched me all over, and I mean all over. And I had to have a doctor come and see me when they arrested me. And he took down details of all the injuries I had, and there was quite a bit of blood around.
Did you hit her, George?
Yes, I didn't beat her up. I slapped her to get her off my private parts, which were torn to shreds. She can be a bit feisty, and that's putting it mildly.
Police reports from the night confirm that both Alex and George were injured. George was arrested, but he was never charged. He maintains that he acted in self-defence. Alex absolutely refutes this, insisting that George was drunk and physically aggressive.
My father, my son, Phil, my agent, and my friends, they know what I'm like, so they don't look at me in any different way since it all came out. I mean, my ex said to me once, "You've lost all credibility." And I said, "There's one thing I'll never lose, is credibility."
George Best was born in Belfast, the eldest of 6 children. He grew up playing football on the Craiger estate.
In those days in Belfast, there was only a few ways to get out of the rat race, and that was play snooker, be a boxer, or play football. And I did all, but football was the one thing I wanted more than anything.
George was turned down by several local teams, but by chance he and a friend were spotted by a scout for Manchester United. He was 15 when he first went to England.
And neither of us had ever been outside of Belfast in our lives before. Not now, the two of us sat up talking to each other, and we said, we don't like it here, do we? And we went home the next day. Luckily, my dad called Sir Matt and said, "Is there any problem?" He said, no, they were homesick and they wanted to come home. But, you know, we've seen the potential, and he's welcome to come back anytime he wants. And 2 weeks later, I went back on my own, and that was it.
What made you change your mind again?
Because I thought I'd disappointed my mum and dad. And I thought, well, I'll go. And because I wasn't that confident I could make it. You know, for the same reason, I suppose, that people had turned me down. Because I really wasn't like a kid. I was still wearing short trousers, I think. And I just thought, well, I'll go for it and you know, make them proud.
When he arrived in Manchester, George stayed here at number 9 Aycliffe Avenue in Chorlton and was looked after by his landlady, Mrs. Fullaway. He was shy, insecure, and homesick for a year. But all that would later change.
This became my home, and she became my surrogate mother, so to speak. So it was, I just felt comfortable here. And I used to sit up here in my room and most nights write a little note, just letting Mum and Dad know what I was up to and what I've been doing during the day and all the games, and if I'd scored or played well or played bad. So this was my little writing den. My mum never ever saw me play. She might have seen clips on television, but it never actually came to live games. Dad was the one that liked coming over and spending the weekends and watching the football, yeah, but not Mum, no.
George trained hard for 2 years before he played his first league game. And 3 months later, on December the 28th, 1963, he scored his first goal for Manchester United.
That night, I got the local newspaper, and they had a photograph of me scoring my first goal for Man United. So that was like heaven. I think that was the first time I saw my mum and dad proud of me.
But that was nothing compared to the adulation he received a year later when he played against a Portuguese team that everyone thought were unbeatable.
Dennis Law and the rest of Matt Busby's men had only one thought: attack. After 7 minutes, the ball went to George Best. Goal!
We didn't beat them, we slaughtered them. I mean, we really did. And this kid, you know, scored 2 goals against them. And it was one of the proudest moments to me.
Best had the ball again. Another goal.
Britain's 5th Beatle was about to be born.
I was doing something I loved. I was playing football for one of the greatest clubs in the world. And I was getting headlines. And I loved reading about myself. I must have, sometimes I milked it. You know, I mean, getting off the plane with a leather coat and a sombrero, it was just, because I knew they were all going to be waiting for me. So that was really the start of the madness.
Where once he welcomed the headlines, Today, George is keen to get away from the attention surrounding his divorce, and so joins his sister Barbara and her husband, holidaying in a quiet part of France.
I've never come here and got a cold.
I don't know where the sunshine's gone.
Right, I'm going to show you a trick. You ready?
Yeah.
7, 8, 9, 10. Pick two of those numbers.
8 and 9.
So that leaves 7 and 10, yeah? Pick one of those.
Yep.
Well, tell me.
Tell you, all right. 10.
10. Okay. Hearts, clubs, diamonds, and spades. Pick two of those.
Hearts.
Pick two, I said.
2 clubs and hearts.
That leaves diamonds and spades, yeah? Pick one of those.
Spades.
That leaves diamonds, yeah?
Yeah.
10 of diamonds.
It was on holiday in Corfu, less than a year after his operation, that George began to drink again.
I was away with some friends and my son and my wife, and they were out landing on Sunday, and I was bored, you know, nothing to do, and I started strolling down to the local taverna and having one glass, and then the next day it was 2 glasses, and then it's terrible because it's just a snowball.
It's quite easy for people who know no better to say, oh, he's just a drunk or he's just an alcoholic, and not just George, but any alcoholic. People who don't know anything about the illness, and people who certainly haven't lived with it, have no idea what it's like. They couldn't possibly, otherwise they wouldn't be so blasé and so unsympathetic towards the whole issue of alcoholism. Anyone who needs to get up first thing in the morning and have a drink obviously can't do anything about it. I'm just a firm believer that alcoholics don't want to be like that.
George's other famous weakness is for women. Over the years, he's had countless affairs with models, actresses, and notably 2 Miss Worlds. He seems to find it impossible to be faithful. Alex was his second wife and his longest relationship.
10 years is a long time with one person. And it hurts sometimes, but we've got to get on with it.
He was not yet divorced, but George had already been spotted by the press with a number of women.
I'm totally in love with one woman at the moment. But she's with someone else, so I can't have her. I've been with lots of women, but this is just something special. But she's married, and I feel guilty. And she feels the same. So. Oh, no, don't.
So what are the odds on George Best getting remarried then?
Odds on. I will again, yeah. And hopefully to her.
George can never resist a challenge. He's always been fiercely competitive on and off the football pitch.
You know, I teach my son there's nothing wrong with being second, but I don't believe it. Second is not good enough.
He must win at all cost.
Hi, darling. Did you smile? Yeah, obviously not. All right, I'm going to finish it now. Ready? I got pissed. All right, so shut up. Shit. You're with someone else, okay? And it really fucking pisses me off. I hate losing. I hate it. Okay, you tell me the next move. What do we do? Nearly. Don't bullshit. It is. Oh. Do you want to listen or not? I ain't going. Get him on again.
So far, George's mysterious lover seems to be resisting his charms.
I just called to say I loved you. Is that wrong?
Okay, what? Huh? Okay, right. Put the phone down, I'll call you back in 2 seconds. She did as well.
Why'd you get involved in all this, George, already?
I don't get involved, it's just... actually quite enjoy it.
What, the chase?
Nah, it's not a chase, it's called Beautiful Women.
What could you go longest without? Drink or sex?
Drink, I've gone for a year. The other one, I can't. I don't like being on my own. I just like, and it sounds pretty basic, doesn't it? But I just like company and being with someone who's a little bit special.
So it's not actually the sex then?
No, well, that's part of it, but company is important to me. You know, you've seen what I'm like here. I enjoy men's company. I don't mean that. I just like being one of the boys and having a game of pool, but at the end of the night, I don't want to go to bed on my own. So, and you can't always have that. But, well, I can't. And that's my attitude and the way I look at it.
The Best family have had their share of unhappiness. George's mother died from alcohol abuse when she was 54. She only began drinking in her early 40s, at the height of George's success. It's been suggested that the impact of his fame on her life may have been partly to blame for her addiction. Her death has had a lasting effect on George.
Well, I went to therapy in San Jose. And through therapy, I had to write a letter to my mother, apologizing to her. Because I always thought it was my fault. Because she, well, basically she killed herself. Because she didn't want to live anymore. Yeah. And I felt guilty for years and years and years. And still do to a certain extent. But now I realize there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, she decided. But it hurt. I mean...
What did you say to your mum?
What did I say? I said I was sorry. That... Okay, like in a minute. That I wasn't there. Sort of. It's quite simple. I just said I was sorry. I wasn't there.
But could you have been there?
That's what pisses me off. We can all be there. in hindsight.
By 1967, George had become Manchester United's star player. He scored 32 goals in one season alone. He may have been shy off the pitch, but on it, he was full of confidence.
I could do something better than most people. And I found it so easy. I had them in my hand. When I did things and you hear the, you know, it's a roar and, you know, it's such a buzz. And I knew I could do it time after time. And every time I got the ball, I could feel them. I used to stand up when I got it. I was a greedy little git. It was my ball. And I used to think, well, I'm going to show you what it's all about, and that's what I tried to do.
George Best was football's first superstar. The 60s were in full swing, and his natural talent and pop star good looks were an explosive combination. He opened his own boutiques and could now be regularly seen at pubs and clubs around the city.
We were just kids enjoying ourselves. I mean, we were earning plenty of money, and that's it. We just enjoyed life. We shared girlfriends, and we laughed and joked about it, and that's the way it was. And it was just fun. If I'd been drinking heavily or staying out late, when I went training, I used to train twice as hard as anybody else because I had to. And Paddy Crerand, I used to go in somewhere and he used to say, "Pest," he said, "You stink." He said, "Get out there and sweat it out." And that's what I used to do. And I used to try and out-train everybody else. Go! I had a rule that I never broke. Thursday, Friday, I never went out. Or I went out, but I never had to drink after Wednesday, because that was my rule. And it's funny because today people still meet me and tell me stories about, oh, I remember taking you out on the Friday night and you drank 6 bottles of champagne and then scored a hat-trick the next day. And I said to him, I said, "You got it wrong." I said, "I never went out on a Friday night." And religiously, I used to sit in my little digs with Mrs. Fullaway, used to have my fish and chips, and never ever went out.
At 22, he was at his peak. He was voted Footballer of the Year, both here and in Europe.
Waiting to receive was mighty Best. He simply walked the ball into the net.
His club were the European champions, but an ageing team were about to go into decline. The pressure on George would start to mount.
I always wanted to win. I mean, we'd won the league twice, we won the European Cup. And then the side were, you know, we had great players like Dennis Law and Bobby Charlton and Bill Foulkes, who were all coming towards the end. And they weren't being replaced, and I wasn't very happy with the situation.
When manager Sir Matt Busby, a father figure to George, announced his retirement, the frustration started to spill over into George's off-field activities.
We could all drink a bit, and George would normally have halves a lager and be very funny and affable, and then would go on vodka and lemonade because he thought it looked like lemonade and nobody would notice. And then at the 2 o'clock in the morning times, when just a little stagger, not quite right, and a little bit of aggression maybe, not to me but certainly to other people.
At first his drinking had been a bit of fun, but it soon became the only way he could cope with the pressure of fame and his disillusionment with Manchester United.
Jeff, my friend, still says to me that, you know, you're no different than us. You're not an alcoholic. And I said, Jeff, I said, the difference was when you left the club or the bar or the restaurant and went home to sleep, I said, I went out. And I went home at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. And then when I woke up, went out and had another drink. I said, that's the difference.
He couldn't train as he would have liked then, and I think that had a sort of knock-on effect on his football. And he's the kind of guy who, if he can't be the absolute best, he doesn't want to do it. And that's where the running away syndrome comes in. If he can't be good at it, he tries to get away from it. Or if he doesn't want to do it, he runs away from it, as opposed to fronting it up and saying, well, why can't I do this?
As if to make matters worse, George and his friends opened their own nightclub, Slack Alice's.
We put £3 grand a piece in.
That's what it cost us.
That's what it cost.
Total was about £10,000.
Yeah.
For this.
And we didn't do anything particular.
We painted it black, didn't we?
Yeah.
Put a little bit of furniture, and we got the best DJ in town.
From then on, George was regularly fined for not turning up at training.
I used to get phone calls when Frank O'Farrell was in charge of Old Trafford. They used to phone me up and say, where is he? He's not turned up for training. You'll know where he is. I would be maybe the last one to see him go with a particular girl, or so I would know the general area where to find him, phone him up and tell him. And he might go training or he might not, depends how he felt.
In 1974, his United career came to a premature end. It was reported that the then manager Tommy Docherty refused to play George when he turned up drunk for a match. George denied the allegations and vowed never to play for Manchester United again.
His own peers were more upset than anything. I mean, I've been on holiday with him when he was surrounded by players saying, George, we've heard you're leaving the game. What, you're retiring, you're chucking it, what's going on? You can't, you've got too much to offer. And I said to him on the way home, I said, well, does that not affect you? Do you not get, nah, do what I want to do. And so instead of, I don't know, going to another club or asking for a transfer or anything, he just ran away.
George Best is still running away today. From the beginning of this project, George was keen for us to film him with his father in Belfast. However, when the time came to go, George was nowhere to be seen. The only person who knew where to find him was Mavis, a latter-day Mrs. Fullaway, who looks after George at the health farm.
I've only once sort of went after him because I thought, well, I better go and check he's all right. And he was playing pool. And he was okay, and I just passed the pub. I saw his car, so I thought, I'll stop and I'll go in and make sure he's okay, and just perhaps say to the people that are running the pub, you know, just make sure he doesn't have too much. But, you know, he's going to do what he wants to do anyway at the end of the day.
To add to the confusion, his son Callum, over from America to further his modelling career, arrived expecting to spend the evening with his dad.
Cool, I didn't know he was going back with you. I didn't know he was leaving with you today. Because I planned to spend the night here. I thought we were going to chill out, and he's out of here. Cheeky fucker.
It's closed, so he's not there, is he? Closed. Do you want to try the other one?
We'd been with George all day, and he knew we had a flight to catch. Thankfully, Mavis didn't give up easily. But when she found him, George had obviously changed his mind and now had other plans.
No, tomorrow.
Today?
No, tomorrow morning I'm going.
Are you?
Yeah, I'll be in
They
Canada.
thought you were going tonight. Oh.
I'll be there tomorrow, okay?
All right.
I'm going to spend a night with my son.
No one was surprised by his behaviour. As we know, George Best only does what George Best wants to do.
the end of the day, I just let him do his thing, you know? After he got a liver up, I thought, okay, I'm gonna try my hardest to help him through this, right? Like if we go out, I'm not drinking, and hopefully people around him aren't drinking. But once I see when that didn't change and now he is back drinking, at the end of the day, there's nothing I could do, and I'd rather go out with him and be cool with it and be on his good side and be his mate instead of trying to preach to him, and then, because then it becomes a little sneaky, and I don't want to be on bad terms, you know? I'd rather be happy when it's good. Because our relationship's good at the moment. We see each other like 2-3 times a week when we're in London, and I have a blast with him. It's like the best it's ever been, so I wouldn't want to ruin that.
So you're not coming tonight?
No.
But you will come tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah, there's one person I don't let down is my dad. Because he's expecting me, so I'll be there.
George had constantly told us how much he loved and respected his father. So we left for Belfast without him, confident he wouldn't let us down. George's father still lives in the same house on the Craiger estate, where George grew up as a child.
We were hoping to have been here with George now, but hopefully he'll be joining us later, I think.
Well, now, first things first with me, in this instance, I go out on a Wednesday night with a friend, so you won't be here tonight, sure.
What had I brought you up to date on?
At home nearby, Barbara had heard nothing from George.
On the 9 o'clock flight. No, that didn't happen. The 11 flight's not going to happen either. So we're sort of in limbo at the moment.
When was the last time you saw George?
Oh, God. I think the last time I saw George, I think it was when he was in Portavogie here. That must be whatever. I couldn't tell you exactly how long it was when he went back. I think there was one occasion, I just can't remember. My memory's not good at times about things like that. I can't remember when it was or where it was the last time I actually saw him in person.
As we waited for George to arrive, his father talked a little about how proud he was of his son.
I think that he was one of the top players of all time. That's not being big. I prefer maybe you wouldn't put that into your programme, me saying that, because I've never been guilty of boasting about George. Yeah, but it'd be nice if George had been able to play for another 5, 6 or 7 years, which he probably could have done. You obviously know the reason why that happened. I mean, his alcohol problem, it's just no secret now.
As the day went on, it became obvious that George was not going to appear. But although he'd let his family down, you had to admire his sister's loyalty.
Is this typical George behaviour?
Sometimes. Sometimes. No, you're not. No, you're no. No, I don't want. No, I don't want to say. No, that's not fair. I will defend George. Ooh. As much as I possibly can. As much as I possibly can, because he's a good person. He's a nice person. He's funny. He's witty. And unfortunately, alcohol just changes people. But I will defend him. I'll defend him because he's my brother, and I love him, and he's an alcoholic.
It's possible that alcoholism is partly genetic. And all around us were reminders of his mother's tragic fate.
That was my mum and dad's silver wedding anniversary.
My wife, sadly in her later years, took a drink problem. It was such a shame because, as I say, she was such a nice woman, really, and really a good woman. It's just a tragedy, really. Sadly, it's an addiction that no doctor can cure. It's something I don't like to dwell on, really. honest with you.
Although George told us he would never let his father down, he never arrived.
There are times when I think, you know, you're being so stupid, you know, you're letting a lot of people down, especially friends and family. And sometimes, you know, I go to bed here and I think, yeah, you're right, get up in the morning and just get your head together, you know, clean yourself up, have a shave, wash your hair, all the things that normal people do. And then by the time the morning comes, well, I don't sleep anymore. I mean, I can't remember the last time I slept properly. You know, and I get up at 6 and take my medication. And by the time it gets to 7 o'clock, I'm gasping for a drink or for company. And in an unfortunate way, drinks become my company instead of other people.
After George left Manchester United, he went to play football in America. He also opened a bar, not surprisingly called Besties. He met and later married former model Angela Janes. 3 years later, in 1981, Callum was born.
I fell in love with a man who wants to be loved but doesn't know how to allow you to love him. And doesn't think he's worthy of being loved.
I was trying to have a normal lifestyle. I mean, I was earning lots of money, and I was with Angela, and we had a beautiful house in San Jose. We had a nice car, but all I wanted to do was go out and be on my own and sit and drink. And the nearest bar, she wouldn't let me drive. She used to hide the keys and hide money. But I didn't need keys or money, so I'd walk to the nearest bar. And I knew people would buy me drinks. I mean, I could stay out for 5-6 hours and not spend any money.
It was like living with an angel and a devil both together. He would be the sweetest, funniest, loveliest man who would leave me "I love you" messages in the fridge, under my pillow, in my underwear drawer, and then the next moment would be gone for 2 weeks with some old tart and forget that I existed. So you had the angel and you had the devil.
George's mother died in 1978, and not long after, George first sought help for his addiction. Since then, he's tried several ways to beat it. He's even had drugs sewn into his stomach to make him sick if he drank, but they had little effect. It's as if George wants to prove he can drink more than anyone else. Yet again, he has to be the best.
I like the taste of it. I like how it makes me feel.
How does it make you feel?
Confident. Because I sometimes still find it hard to talk to people. And sometimes I don't want to, but and it just it changes your mood. When I'm here as well, it sounds like heaven, but I wake up in the mornings sometimes and I think, what am I doing here? And I go down to the bar and I order a glass of champagne and some orange juice, and that's it. It cheers me up when I'm depressed. And it's the wrong thing to do, because I know it's not a good idea, especially with my medication. I don't know. It just makes me feel good, or feel better.
George often says that he's beaten the drink before, once memorably when serving a prison sentence for assaulting a policeman, and again while qualifying for his operation. But the truth is, this is the one game George Best never wins.
Many alcoholics are able to give up and stay off once they know that they've got to. And that's probably the larger percentage of the patients that I see are those who really, once they know that it's doing harm, are able to stop and don't drink again. But in a hardcore of people, they will still go on drinking episodically from time to time. They get on top of it, stop, but then they relapse. And there's no known physiological or any other basis that we know of for that different type of behaviour. It's an inborn psychological, genetic interaction.
If George hadn't been famous, would he still be an alcoholic?
Wow. No, I don't think you would. I think the business we were in or went into made it very available. I mean, I'm in the business now, and it is I find that being in a drink environment obviously makes you drink. And I think if George hadn't been involved in nightclubs, maybe it would have taken another turn.
We all get frustrated with alcoholics, we do, that you can't deny it, because they are so often a law unto themselves. But I'm sure that George would have been an alcoholic with or without the fame that he has.
George may have inherited his addiction, but that doesn't mean it's simply his destiny to become an alcoholic. The question is, does George want to change? And that depends on which George you talk to.
I ain't going to change, no. What you see is what you get. Win, lose, draw, that's the way I am. I mean, I'm 57, I ain't going to change, no. I've been doing it for 40 years, so either take it or leave it.
And are you happy with that?
Yeah. At the end of the day, you know, I go to bed at night and I get up in the morning and I don't feel any guilt. I don't have to apologize to anybody. I don't hurt anybody. And if you want to be with me, you don't want to be with me. That's the way it is.
Do you not want to change?
Well, I do, but at the same time, I'll get through it.
So you would like to change?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you said to me, as from tomorrow, you won't have another drink, and you'd do this and do that, I'd say, well, it sounds good, but I can't get it out of my system.
I say about an alcoholic that they're more to be pitied than laughed at. And when I hear of someone who had that problem and coming to terms with it and able to live without it, to me it's like getting £1,000 in my hand, and I'm so pleased for them.
If George were here now, what would you say to him?
Just try a bit harder before it's too late.